Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining our webinar. This is our second in a series about cash management and banking and payments. Today, we're going to be focusing on optimizing processing and reconciliation. And on the phone with me, I have our two experts and want to say good afternoon, I guess, to the both of you. Haresh Chaya from SAP, who is the solution owner for Treasury. Hello, Haresh, and thanks for joining us.
Hello, John.
And Kim Dowling, who is the lead and head of our practice. Good afternoon.
Hi, John.
So we'll dive into a little bit of the housekeeping as always. As you know, this webinar is being recorded, so you have the opportunity to go out, upload it, and share it with all of your friends and family. You can ask questions throughout the session, and we encourage you to do so. We love your questions, so please feel free to ask. And then, of course, you can download our webinars from our homepage here. Contact us at bramasol.com. You can also come and check us out at Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Also invite you to hop on over to Apple iTunes. We have a series of different podcasts and tips that are going on, and you can download those podcasts, sign up for our Insight to Actions podcasts, the So What podcast that we're doing every Friday, and we have a really good one on some accounting tips that you can check out. And again, also our Insight to Action podcasts are available through iHeartRadio. So I ask all of you to kind of go out there and check that out. So let's talk about the agenda.
Presenting your slides because I don't see them.
You don't see them. I was presenting them.
Unless it's just me.
No, it could be everybody. So hold on, folks. We'll try that.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no. Thank you. Nope. Like I said, I reset my PC and everything's a mess. All right. You should be able to see now.
I do. Thank you.
So again, yeah, thank you. So the webinar is being recorded. So here we have the slide. Check out all of our great stuff on the website and iTunes. So why don't we dive right into the webinar? Again, welcome to everybody. We appreciate your joining us. We'd love to have you. We'll discuss and touch on some of the driving forces in the marketplace today, particularly around the idea of treasury and cash management. And then Kim will take us through, together with Haresh and our discussion around payment and cash management foundation and the next phase of really getting, continuing that journey of a world-class payments and cash management. And we're going to have Haresh talk a little bit about Treasury Workstation and focus on the advanced payments management, because we've gotten a lot of questions from folks as a lead into this, so we thought we'd touch on that topic. So with that, we're focusing on digital transformation. Why are we talking about it? Well, the reality is that it's been estimated that in the next 5 years, over $178 billion will be spent solutions helping enable and drive digital transformation. And in a recent study by Trulio, they said that over 90% of executives said that this crisis that we're in has actually accelerated digital transformation. And finally, with that digital transformation, what else are people doing? And Gartner did a recent survey a couple of months ago and surveyed and said, what are you focused on today as a result of this COVID activity, as a result of really retrenching and looking at your businesses? And over 38% of executives will use costs to help drive digital transformation. So with that, why don't I turn it over to Kim, and you can talk a little bit about what you're seeing as we talk with our customers about the future of Treasury and what's going on with financial leadership.
Sure. Thank you, John. So what I wanted to talk about with the future of Treasury and financial leadership is a little bit what we've been talking about before. So before I really get into the deck and the topic of today for optimizing payment processes and our reconciliation, I wanted to look at these driving forces and some of the things that we do talk about in the Treasury world, and with a lot of my finance counterparts, is that finance and Treasury professionals really are still moving away from looking from that tactical role and to try to adopt that more strategic role. And it's very difficult to do when your systems and processes are not optimized. So they're looking how best can they do that? How can they actually even do that and maybe breaking it up into different components so they can start having some quick wins. So we're going to talk about some of those possibilities today, as we did the first webinar a couple weeks ago, and as well as this one today, and the next one I'll have in a couple weeks after this. But our current polls are still indicating that about 90% of our executives are still expecting that their teams will be able to drive those higher business values, influence their business decisions. There's a lot of pressure on them to really be able to quickly react and on those business events. Look at what's happening now with COVID, and now that we're all working from home and quickly having to be able to communicate with each other over the phone and try to make those quick decisions, see what's going on in the marketplaces, try to gather the information out of our banking systems and our ERPs or treasury systems quickly. It's very difficult to do when you're not having those nimble systems and you're still working those Excel spreadsheets. So we'll get into some of the possibilities, how to make that a little easier for you.
Yeah, and I know, Kim, you and I have met with, oh gosh, well over a dozen customers since our last webinar, and this message resonates with them around, you know, I'm thinking both long-term and short-term. How do I gain short-term value that sets me up for the long-term as well? Is that consistent with what SAP is seeing as you talk to customers in the marketplace?
Oh, yeah, John, thanks. Sorry, John, was the question for me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I thought it was Haresh.
Yeah, Haresh, I did. So Haresh, you know, as we talk to customers in the marketplace, what we're seeing is this balance between short-term needs of looking at things like in areas like cash management and how do I get a short-term value, but they're really looking also long-term and asking questions like, I don't do a lot of throwaway work. I want to be able to do something that impacts value now, but does something over the long term. And I know you talk to customers 2 or 3 a day. Is that consistent with what SAP is seeing?
Yes, definitely, John. In fact, due to the crisis, customers are now focusing on, hey, you know, how do I get over this hump that we are all on by putting something in place that gives them cash visibility, and also, you know, whatever the bank balances are, they need access to the cash as soon as they can. But at the same time, they want to use this as an opportunity to lay foundation for, okay, how do I deal with my receivables in the future so that, you know, the cash manager has always up-to-date information in front of them, or maybe how they can centralize their payments activities and do their forecasting around what the payables could look like and in the short term, near term, long term, etc., much better. Now, of course, you know, some of those activities are they need a little you know, larger investment from their side, but at the same time, you know, this is probably the best time to start. You know, there's a strong case to be able to tell how much cash you have, where do you have it, how you can best put it to use for your business, and then eventually, you know, build up on it in the longer term by putting more cash in treasury solutions. So yes, that is exactly what we are hearing from our market customers.
So there's some additional factors out there, Kim. You know, what else are you seeing? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you know, visibility of our data is really now the most challenging area for Treasury. Just as Haresh was saying, you know, in order to see all of your items, your payables, your receivables, your cash, you know, we need to have that increase in speed. We have to make changes quickly and nimbly. We need to be able to see all that data in real time and have that connectivity. But with, you know, technology that we have today versus what we've had in the past, you know, it's time to be able to use those tools to be able to have that visibility all in one place for all of your data, so you can make those decisions very quickly and nimbly. And, you know, of course, also you can also start getting the benefits of the machine learning as well when you start bringing all this data together, which we can actually talk about in one of my next webinars later on. But the visibility is going to be key. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So with the need for these intuitive tools, we're looking at many different Treasury objectives. We're looking to try those cash flow improvements. We're trying to optimize those assets and liabilities to enable secure payments. We're looking for those forward-looking insights, being able to look at managing our financial risk. How can we fund the business, and how can we minimize the cost of capital? But with this digital world of technology, it's really looking to help us enable our CFOs' ability and treasurers and finance to make those real-time financial decisions so they can actually utilize those new cutting-edge digital technologies. Where the corporate objectives are not changing, it's really how are we achieving these objectives, and what is it changing because our ability to tap into these now digital tools. So this new technology is really already applicable and being used in many areas. It's the level of adoption that will most likely continue to rise within the treasury and finance function areas as the organizations continue to grow, because we're really looking at that push to focus on those business into the future, trying to get that instant insight anywhere on any device, rather it be on, a lot of us may have to be looking on our cell phones where the technology wasn't there before, looking at those end-to-end processes, automation, making sure that integrity of that data is consistent and for all across the operations.
Yeah, that's the one thing that we've heard as a theme in the meetings that we've had. There are a lot of people out there who use standalone systems, whether they're workstations or everybody's favorite tool, Excel, and it's this integrity and end-to-end integrity of the data, and they spend so much time on reconciliation and validating the data instead of analyzing that. And I think that's what's really great about the process that you're talking through and are in this step. So absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I was there. I was in that situation, and it's on my past lives. And then I know a lot of the other folks on the phone probably either are or they've been there too. And it's frustrating at times, but there are better ways of doing things, and that's what some of our messages are. Because I want to make sure that folks know what are the possibilities, what's out there, how can you do things better and differently. So if you remember when we were talking several weeks ago, I mean, time flies, it could have been a month now, but I think it was a couple of weeks ago. Our first phase of this discussion was talking about being able to connect directly with SAP's Multi-Bank Connectivity for bringing in the bank statements from the bank. So we could actually automate that and to have visibility of the cash position. So we could see all of our cash in one place instead of logging into those individual different bank portals using all the different fobs I used to have to carry around. And then taking that together and putting it into Excel and consolidating it or manually typing or however they may have been doing it. So now what I'm doing is I'm building in the other piece of it. So now I want to build in, as we talked about last time, the payments and the approvals of those payments and the reconciliation, the automatic accounting for those payments. So with these solutions, we're going to be looking at bank communication management, so we can actually batch those payments and doing the thresholds of the different approvals, however the company needs to do that, making sure we're bringing that into our cash management, and all those payments are securely going out the door through multi-bank connectivity. As you can see in the little section of our digital core of SAP Treasury Management, we're going to be talking about the payments and the cash management with the connection of the multi-connectivity and talking about what's that going to do for you? So what? How is that helping me? Because when able to enable the business ability to focus on these key area of improvements, it's going to allow for you for that scalable key improvement. So that's why I want to focus on optimizing our payment processing and our reconciliation solution so we can encompass that payment batching, approvals based on the thresholds, direct connectivity to the multi-bank connectivity. And also looking at the incoming bank statements, those acknowledgements enable the automation of our bank statement monitoring reconciliation. And Haresh will actually talk about later in the conversation today. He'll go over more in the digital payments and about the cloud capabilities as well as we're going through towards the end.
All right.
Go on to the next slide. So looking at these end-to-end processes, what we're going to talk about here is when we're looking at the key area of improvement, we're looking at how can we allow this to be a scalable key improvement. So we're not only just connecting with payments going with incoming bank statements as we were in last conversations, but with multi-bank connectivity, but we're also looking at how can we make our payments, AP and AR and treasury payments out the door? How can we actually look at making sure we're connecting our payments through bank communications management, which is another word for the short acronym is BCM, so we can actually batch those payments. And you can have, 2 eyes, four eyes based on thresholds for approvals to make sure that they're accurately being approved before they go out the door if needed. We're going to then look on how can we actually make sure that once those payments make it out to the bank and come back in, the electronic bank statements, how are we going to ensure that those bank statements are properly reconciled and those GL postings are automated? And our cash position is updated with those real-time updates, looking at the full seamless pieces of it, integrating the bank's seamless cash visibility of all the inflows and outflows and straight to processing of the payment. And of course, by doing so, we're going to be leveraging those processes as we just talked about for BCM, electronic bank statements, the bank statement monitoring and acknowledgement. And what's also new is that bank statement reconciliation, GL postings, and cash positioning. Remember last time we talked, I said we're not talking about payments, we're not talking about bank account reconciliation or GL postings, because we were just trying to make that initial connectivity with multi-bank connectivity so we could bring in with the banks our bank statements just to get our cash visibility. Step one, chunk it up into a bite-sized piece. And here's your next, a little bit of a bigger bite-sized piece. So this is the next step in the
Kim,
process.
Yeah, you in the headline here, we talk about incoming and out payment. Why don't you clarify that? Because I know when we started prepping for this, I said, well, payments, that's great. You're going to do out, I know what my payments are. And that's also your receipt. So maybe you can clarify that for folks for a second.
So we're first of all looking at getting actual AP payments, accounts payable. So you have, your invoices that you're paying your vendors. Those payments, we're looking to have those to go through. When you actually initiate them out of your SAP system, you can actually, instead of doing a file upload to your bank, you can actually first have those funneled and batched using multi-bank connectivity, so we can make sure that we're getting the proper approvals before we actually funnel those out to the bank. Some people may let them go hands-free because the thresholds are too low and they don't need to make those improvements. So what will happen is for the AP payments, which would also could include Treasury-related payments, you can also put them through the Bank Communication Manager for approvals if they so need to, because of basic thresholds and for security purposes to make sure no payments go out the door without being properly authorized. Then what happens is then when it's ready, it will actually funnel through Multi-Bank Connectivity, which is our middleware piece that actually securely connects and routes those payments to our banks. Once the banks receive our payments, they will actually, do what banks are supposed to do to make sure that the payments make to where they have, where they need to be going to the third parties. And also they will also, as the banks do for us, they collect our receivables, our accounts receivables.
Right.
Any kind of receivables. It could be bank-to-bank transfers or any kind of money that's flowing into our bank account. So then the banks will send us, through multi-connectivity again, our bank statements, which we talked about last time, and it's securely connecting through multi-bank connectivity. And now we're going to be talking about bringing those bank statements in so we can monitor them and see that they've actually successfully processed and what failed and what didn't fail, what may need some rework, because let's say you had an accounts receivable item that was partially paid and so it couldn't fully apply or didn't know how to apply, you could do your rework. And you can see that on the bank statement monitor, or you could you see that your bank statement payments would have failed. You can see what actually processed or not. And then what happens is it will actually take those bank statements and tell you if they properly reconciled what SAP was expecting to happen actually happened. That's the reconciliation. It's automating that process. So someone's not opening up a bank statement and ticking and tying it and going through a manual process and then manually doing the journal entries to post those items. There's different, so the GL postings will also be automated. So we're talking about that as well.
All right.
So I'm going to go into, and then also you get the acknowledgements that come in. So what I wanted to do with this is actually a pictorial, a very simple, very high level pictorial that I wanted to put together to kind of drive through what I just said. So if you think about it, you're going to have in the first yellow box here, those are your payment processes, what we just talked about. Your actual AP payments or Treasury payments. Treasury payments could be bank-to-bank transfers. They could be emergency payments, or they could be, any kind of payment that the Treasury Department needed to make. And they can do that through the SAP process versus having to go securely with all the proper controls in place. One person creates it, one person approves it, and it goes off into the payment batching for approvals. It's all within SAP. You don't have to go off to your bank portal to do so. And then so it goes all through the batching, through BCM, and then it will eventually go through Multi-Bank Connectivity, which is our connector to execute through the banks, which is the bottom box in the brighter blue. What I have on that second to the bottom left, third-party inflows, that's, of course, any kind of inflows that may be also coming into your bank statements, because your bank statements are going to have any kind of money that's going out of your bank or money that's coming into your bank account. So once the banks have processed all of your activities for the day, the next day you're going to be getting in your bank statements. I'm not talking about interday right now. Of course, you'll have it. You could have interday to get more up to the moment. We'll cover that more so when I do the next conversation on the cash positioning in liquidity forecast using the interday bank statement. But what multi-bank connectivity, again, once you've made that connection, as we talked about, it's all connected with your bank. So it's that beautiful pass-through to be able to now allow your bank statements to securely process into your SAP ERP. And then, of course, it will take your electronic bank statements and be able to process those. And that includes all your payables, all your receivables, your treasury-related type payments, upload those bank statements, and you can see in the monitor if they processed or not. Once that's been taken care of, you're going to have your automated, enhanced automation processing. Your bank statements are now reconciled. Your general letter postings are all automated. Your cash position has automatically been updated. All of your information is in one place without any kind of going off in Excel and pivot tables and downloading bank statements. All that stuff is fully in one place. And just off to the right, this little piece is just your acknowledgement process for your payments that they did successfully process. But that's the beauty of all this. Now you've got everything in one place, one end-to-end process.
Yeah, I know, and you and I talked about that. Hey, there's a question on maybe Haresh. I'd like to throw this one over to you. Somebody online asked about MBC, and they phrased it in the sense of, does multi-bank connectivity have a library of and interfaces that are available multiple different? Maybe you can, Kim went through a project like that, but maybe, Haresh, you can answer question.
You're breaking up a little bit. Were you able to hear him, Haresh?
Yes, I'm actually reading the question. Just bear with me for a moment. Payment format library. Let me address that. So multi-bank connectivity provides the plumbing that allows a company to connect their treasury system, or for that matter, pretty much any system on their side, to their banks. When you talk about library of formats, we work with 100+ banks at today's date, and we have developed standardized formats that work with those banks. So those formats are always available to you if your bank is one of those 105 or 110 banks. Actually, the number keeps growing every day. If not, then we can provide our customers with standardized templates for ISO, for MT, for some of the other formats, and they can use them as is. Now, in my experience, being in this treasury world for more than a decade, most customers will benefit and they want to standardize, and they don't want to have 10 formats. They want to have one format that works for everybody, all their banks. And so there's always this benefit to take these standardized formats that SAP can offer, working with the specified banks, and try to harmonize the remaining banks as well on similar formats. Sometimes it takes a little bit of back and forth to do so, but it is still always beneficial. I'm looking at the second question, second part of the question. So as far as the build, test, and deploy is concerned, if you're using the standard templates, ISO templates or MT formats, you're basically testing your own data. You're not testing whether the format works or not, because that format has been tested by other customers before you with those banks. But of course, your data is coming from your own system. Are you providing the right data in the right field, right format? That is something that you will have to test as a part of the project. What MBC will deliver to you is the connection between your company and the bank without you having to worry about all the technical aspects. And it takes weeks. And in my experience, connecting a bank is not a simple 1 week job. It takes several weeks and at times months. I mean, depends on, what is the scale, involved. So I hope that answers your questions. Is there any other question?
I can add a little bit to that as well. I actually just worked on this with a client of ours right now. We're actually finalizing it, almost ready to go live. Now, what we ended up doing is we ended up working with the banks and standardizing the format. We're actually using XML, and we were able to create the same standardized format, believe it or not, for each one of the 3 banks that we connected with. There might have been some minor tweaks, and we coordinated directly with them to make sure that they could actually, we'd send them the payment file formats and making sure that they could actually read them and process them accordingly. It wasn't too bad from what I've done in the past when we had so many different formats, especially when we used to do the BAI format. And Haresh, you and I remember that. And I actually had done that a couple of years ago with another client, but this was actually quite clean and straightforward. And we were actually able to pass that information directly into well, first of all, they connected with MBC and made sure they could connect. That was the first step. And then we actually met with the banks and worked with them to make sure we could come up with a standardized XML format. One of the banks didn't even know what that was or deal with it. So we worked hand in hand with them to help build that. And it actually went quite well and quite smooth at the moment. But the best that you can try to formalize that into one format, the better.
About, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
MBC, is that a standalone module, part of, how do people consume MBC?
Oh, MBC,
So,
that's yeah, go ahead, Haresh.
Sure, I guess that's a SAP question. So MBC is a cloud solution. It's abbreviated for Multi-Bank Connectivity, and it provides corporates the access to their banking systems. And what Kim was describing in this process, you don't have to worry about how will you send your payments to the banks. You will have a pipe connecting your company to your bank that'll carry the payments to the bank, bring the statements back from the banks, the acknowledgments back from the banks. And it doesn't stop there. SAP is investing in many other use cases to use this sort of gel that sits between a corporate and the bank and help customers get closer to their banks as they manage their treasury.
Yep. If you think about it, for folks that are out there, you may have done it with using the SWIFT network. You may have used other third-party connectors. It's a connector. It's a process that connects you, your ERP, with the banks for all your flows of information in a secure manner. And you will be doing, your setups. The banks don't have to join MBC. They just have to, make the connection. And same thing on the ERP side. We connect that with MBC so we can send the information back and forth to each other. And we automate and batch that process too. So it works. So far, so good. Once you get it set up, it's fine. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about is the benefits, the key capabilities and benefits that we have for the different pieces, and payment processing being the first one as we're talking about today. So having showed you the flow and how this all works, is some of the key capabilities that we're looking at is automating those payment workflows and streamlining and routing those approvals. That's where you got your bank communication management. And then looking at making sure we have that intuitive status for monitoring, so we have that visibility into the whole payment lifecycle, so you can actually see what's going on to make sure everything's processing, everything's successful, nothing failed, and it gives you the ability to drill into that, and you can rework it if you need to. But it also allows you to have that standard interface for all those banking formats, as I was describing to you, the one that we're using with XML. We're doing in ECC, but we're all set up now where I'm going into S4 and I'm using the same format. Once I set it up, I didn't have to change anything. I've got the centralized payments. You can do payments on behalf of two if that's what you're working on, but they're all centralized. So the benefit, what am I going to get out of it? What are you going to get out of it? Is now you're also going to have that opportunity to consolidate the number of global banking relationships, connectivity, using multi-bank gateways. You're going to optimize your working capital because now you have that effective cash pooling across all your groups. You have the ability to help facilitate, reducing your maintenance, because now IT is not connecting all those direct interfaces with the banks, as the banks kind of change things every time they do an upgrade. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Now you've got that secure connection and touch base with your banks, and SAP's multi-connectivity team is taking care of all that piece for you. And they standardize that interface, so it costs you a lot less for keeping that up. And of course, with those secure payment routings, you have a very enhanced governance and controls across your treasury. So your money is being very safe. You're not worried about any kind of hacking or any kind of issues. And we'll go into the slide towards the end where I've actually enhanced that since our last discussion. I can go a little bit more into those benefits. And I've added a couple pictorials here so you can actually even drill into some of the screens what you would see in the payment processing, where you can actually understand, all your bank statements that have been ported successfully. You can analyze your cash position by country, currency, company code. You can receive and import your bank statements in all those multi-formats if you so need to, especially when you're dealing in some of the international countries. And you can also easily go in and fix those errors through post-processing, because you can see that they failed, click into it, and take care of that right then and there. And I'll go on to the next one, which gives you the other benefits for the electronic bank statement. So now the payments have gone in the door. You can go to the next. Now the payments have gone out the door. Now you're going to have electronic bank statements coming back in from the banks, which we just talked about last time, just picking up the bank statement and just allowing it to populate within the cash position. We're taking it to another level now. We're actually now ensuring that we have the bank monitor up and running so we can see what processed, what didn't process, but we're actually going to be taking this electronic bank statement and updating it into our cash position as well, and doing the automatic after it's been fully reconciled and all the GL postings have been made. So key capabilities, of course, is now supporting all of those incoming payments, Treasury or AP, importing those bank statements. You've got all those different file formats. If you got the Swift 940, you got the DAI, XML, we're using XML. If you're using, you can have your bank statement overview, so you can see all of your bank statements, if they've come in, how much value was in each one of the bank statements by currency, by bank, so forth. You have full processing and posting and clearing of all those items. So the key benefits I'm going to get out of this is that now I've supported all of our GL document postings instead of posting those manually. It's all posted. All the rules are in there. All the GL accounts are set up when it receives those bank statements and sees all the different line items and knows exactly what to do with it. We can actually automate those bank statement reconciliations as well. We can actually go in and put in different string rules in there to make it even more accurate for the items that sometimes fall out of the process. And machine learning a lot of times will also take over and help you with that process. And we've also allowed that whole post-clearing process for all the non-cleared items. And you can, in the search strings I just had mentioned. So it's really quite a beautiful straight-through process where you don't, it's hands-free, of course, unless there's any reworks that you have to do because something failed, but you're not manually pulling in those bank statements. You're not manually reconciling or manually posting those GL entries. And you have straight-through visibility of what failed and what didn't fail. We can go on to the next, which is a key highlight that I want to talk about. And then after that's all done, bank statement payments went out, receivables came in, statements are reconciled, GL postings are made. Now you're going to move on to the next slide, which is going to wrap up with the cash position. Wait till John gets a chance to flip to my next slide.
It should be. It's going a little slow.
It is. Yeah, it's just being a little finicky today. Must be that hot weather down there where you are.
It must be either that or the speed of our friends. Yeah, something going on. All right.
So with the cash management, the cash position. Now, again, last time we talked about just populating the cash balances. And now we're bringing in reconciled cash balances. So we've actually, and it's all real time. No one had to do anything. You've got one single version of the truth of all your cash relevant across all your business entities. You can actually have that flexible, customizable automation of all your daily cash operations. It's all right here. It's all integrated. And it reduced all that time and effort required to obtain that cash information, understand where your cash is at any one time. I'm talking about your current cash that came in the door. I'm not talking about future cash. That will be a next discussion next time. And you're also now having all that interface, which is all bringing it in. You can actually look at this on one of your mobile devices, on your computer, and so forth. And you have all that flexibility, as you can see from these charts here, where you can look at the cash position by region, the company code. You can actually drill into any one of these items if you so chose to, as well, to see the information that came in from the bank statement. If you needed any kind of particular other details that may have been passed through on that bank statement to identify that particular item.
Sure. We have a bunch of questions online here, if we can take a moment. So, Haresh, let me just pop this out, maybe. All right, so we have one question, Haresh, here that says, I noticed you had machine learning in one of the earlier slides. Does SAP have machine learning for cash reconciliation for those payments that do not reconcile automatically?
Yes, so let me describe what machine learning use cases exist today. There's a machine learning use case that allows customers to match the receivables, which show up in a bank statement. It can study your historical data and look at some unique data points that some are defined by the users, some are self-defined by the system through its machine learning / artificial intelligence technology. And based on that, it can apply cash from bank statement without you having to address the unmatched items. So that use case already exists. It's being used by many customers, including one of my previous customers, Merck Sharp and Dome. They have huge operation around receivables, and they're using it. There are other use cases that are also possible around forecasting, but again, if the question is specifically around applying cash, then this is the use case that is already out there. We are evaluating expansion of this particular process to cover not just receivables, but pretty much every entry that shows up in the bank statement, but that's on the future roadmap.
Okay. Next question is, it looks kind of similar. Is there any RPA on the processes so that once I have open receivable cash, the cash applications occur automatically? And I think that's exactly what you were talking about. Is that correct, Harish?
That is correct. Yeah. So RPA is a very narrow term, which just automates certain steps, whereas machine learning is much broader term, where it looks at data, it looks at some intelligence, some algorithms, some logic, and then it applies it all together.
Remember what happened last time.
Right. Yeah. Also, there are a couple of webinars that we did with Birgit Starmans on some of the automated cash app. So I'd encourage you to go check that out. You can go back to our website and check those out, or send me an email and we can get you more information. The next question is, does Payment Solution allow signing payment files inside SAP, e.g. using bank tokens such as SMS codes, etc., to eliminate authorization steps?
Let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
no, go ahead.
No, I was just describing from the SAP solution perspective. E-signing is possible in SAP technology. Now, I'm not very sure about exactly which one precisely will fit your needs, but yes, you can e-sign transactions in SAP. Now, as far as the message transmission is concerned, through multi-bank connectivity, it always goes encrypted, which means SAP is using the same encryption technology that the banks are using to exchange their information with anybody else. So the concern around somebody cracking the message, the risk is the same as you are dealing with the bank directly, compared to as if you're dealing with multi-bank connectivity. There's no difference.
Yeah, and I think the other side of that is the advantage here is, as Kim implied, and maybe Kim, you can answer this, the idea of the banking, the fobs that you used to carry around, right? You used to have multiple login requirements or different codes. MBC and this whole process centralizes all of that, so you don't have to go through that process. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's correct. It actually transfers all your funds to and from the banks, but it's the cash position that we're talking about here in the slide that's underneath, where you can bring in all your cash balances and look at those details in one place. You don't have to go in and into the different bank statements on your bank portal to get that information.
Right.
And when I was actually reading this one little item that Haresh was just answering to, I read it a little bit differently. And what was on my mind, I don't know, maybe I just think differently. I was thinking that they were talking about the approval process of the payments to ensure that the payments were being made with the proper security and controls in place and approval. And that's where we were going when we funnel the payments into bank communication management, that we actually, like for instance, let's say you're talking Treasury, one person creates the payment, one person reviews it for accuracy, then they settle it and it goes off to BCM. And it could go hands-free to the bank through the payment program, or it could be set up where it has to go through another set of workflow, in a workflow scenario, approvals that maybe the treasurer, assistant treasurer has to approve based on the thresholds. That's what came to my mind. So I don't know which one they were looking at, but
that's great too. No, that's dimension. All right.
And that usually causes a lot of questions. But the easy part is, in the old ways, you had to have all the names in there and know exactly who all the signers. It's a lot easier today for the funneling and the workflows than it was in the past.
Sure. Great. All right. So
hopefully that was clear. There was another thing. There's another question here. It says, and Haresh, MBC, is it just designed for SAP or it can be implemented to other ERPs?
So MBC can take messages from SAP and non-SAP systems, and it can channel it out to the external world. But when it's coming from non-SAP systems, you have to do some additional tasks, which are made easier if you have SAP on the other side.
And I'm assuming that would probably be relevant for some of the folks that end up having various ERPs, based on acquisitions and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, the only requirement would be that you at least have to have an S4 instance alongside MBC. So you can't be an Oracle organization and try to use just MBC from SAP. That will not work. You have to have some S4 footprint somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Could you do it if you also had, I know you can use ECC and MBC, but if you're using a separate ERP alongside an SAP product, could be ECC or S4? I'm just curious.
Yeah, MBC will work with both. There's slightly different setup for those systems, but it works with both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it a little bit better with the S4. It's a lot more, easier. But because right now I'm doing it in ECC, and we've done it in S4 as well. Okay.
All right.
Was that the last question?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now here's let me get I have the question still up on my screen. Let me get rid of it so I can actually see what we're looking at here. So what I did here is for our sorry, I'm trying to get these pictures off of my slide so I can actually read it. So I've actually updated this slide that you saw last time now I've included the payments, the automated reconciliation, and the GL postings that we were not talking about last time because it's being phase 2. So with these straight through payment processing, we're still using, now we're taking those payments and we're sending them through multi-bank connectivity, and it does remove all that risk and limits the errors because it's straight through, hands-free, and it's all done in a batch, and it's all pre-tested, so there's nothing manually being picked up or changed or modified, and it's all done securely. And then you've also have the same thing again as last time, all those standard interfaces, they eliminate any of those one-off bank interfaces, you have that reduction in those costs, and full integration with your SAP cash management. And the controls, again, they are strengthened. So now we're talking about those automated payment workflows. They're streamlining and routing all those for approval, which makes our auditors, internal and external, and our SOX controls very happy. It also makes us treasury people happy because at least we know our payments are going, they're not going to just go out the door without the proper approvals. And it's very hands-free and straightforward through the workflows. We also have that intuitive monitoring. So we have that visibility into the entire payment life cycle. We can see exactly what statements went out, what came in, what processed, what didn't process. Click right into it, and we have all of our data in one central platform. We're not picking it up, cutting it, pasting it, throwing it into Excel. We have that integrity. With electronic bank statements, we've captured electronic bank statements via the SAP MBC, which we did last time, but we're also now taking those bank statements and we're going to be automating the bank statement reconciliation. That's what's new now. We're also automating the GL posting in this phase 2. And of course, that also then updates the cash position with the current, and you can also do the current and prior day bank statements and have that full drill through. A lot of folks that I've talked to like to bring in their prior day very early in the morning, and based on the type of their business, depends on if they have a lot of activity, they like to bring in their intraday on a couple of times during the day so they can have the most up-to-date cash position for that day, so they know exactly what they have to invest. And of course,
there's a real,
yep.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I was going to say ROI on this, and we in terms of, and customers want to hear, this is theoretically, hey, you give me all this great stuff, but the real ROI, for example, you're working at a customer now who, by using all of these tools, again, is able to get into the marketplace and understand their cash position that much earlier in the day, more accurately, and it helps them with really getting a return and lowering either the cost of borrowing, increasing the money if they're investing, the amount of return, or cutting down on, or more accurately, having a position or focus how much money they actually need to borrow or invest, right? So they have a better picture of that.
I can actually take that a step further. I was recently, this is a couple of years ago, recently, I actually was working with a client. It was a separate treasury system. It wasn't SAP. And what I like about the SAP, when I was a treasury practitioner, or as when I work for different clients, is that it's all automated now. I'm not waiting. Okay, did you reconcile the bank statements and use the interface to push it into the GL? When am I going to be able to see my cash? It's all real time. And so if something bank statement fails, right then and there something failed and what failed, and you've got the AR people reworking it or AP and so forth, but Treasury themselves, you can actually see what's going on in AP and AR and all of your Treasury in one space. I'm not having to make phone calls to say, what's going on? How come things haven't posted yet? When are you going to push it to the GL? It's like, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I got meetings to go to. You're not waiting for that. It's all right there, and you can see if it failed or not yourself if you want to. It's like just open up a T code, open up the bank statement monitor, boom, there it is. It's not that difficult. And so you're not waiting for all those handoffs and failures. It's real time, because Treasury people don't have time to wait for that visibility. They've got to hit that market quick and make their investment decisions, or or whatever's going on in the marketplace, and then their liquidity forecasting and so forth is critical. So that's one thing I like about this. It's all one place, real time, and I'm not waiting for somebody else. And also the other return on investment that you're getting out of here, not just the fact that you have your visibility to make those decisions quickly. It doesn't take an army of people to have to be able to bring in all those bank statements and to manually post them, reconcile them. You save all that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I can tell you the horror stories. Wait for the checks. I got a whole list of the checks. Let me type them into my Excel, and then let me upload them. It's like, oh my goodness gracious.
All right.
It's fun.
All right. Let's tee up.
That's all I have. I thank you very much, John, and I would like to turn it over to Haresh.
All right. So Haresh, we asked you to focus on a couple of key areas. Why don't you go take it away and talk about the advanced payments and some of those other areas.
Sure, and thank you for that. Coming out of this conversation, one of the things that stands out is, so now you have the ability to see where your cash is. You got the multi-bank connectivity in place. You got your cash management applications telling you bank statements came in, your cash position is so and so. But that's not where the story ends. Now you have obligations, the payments to be made. You get probably payments from different sources, from your S4 system, from your ECC system. Maybe your HR payments are making their way through the channel to the banks. There's quite a few different sources from where different payments could come through. Even if they are from one SAP system, still there could be different events that could be triggering those payments. For example, AP payments typically are triggered completely differently compared to Treasury payments, where there are wire transfers involved and so on. So there's a diversity of payments that customers deal with. And what is important for customers to think about is how they can centralize these payments so that it is easier for the cash managers to get the updated cash position. So once they got the bank statement, it's telling them what is in the bank as of now, but it's not telling them after the payments are made for the day what the ending balance will be. And that is an important aspect because treasurers have to make decisions about whether to borrow if there's going to be any shortfall today, tomorrow, in the near term, or in the longer term. And that's where integration with this whole payments and centralization of payments kicks in. And what you're seeing on the screen is the layer within the managed payments and bank communication section that deals with the centralization of payment aspect. It includes payment processing, controls, monitoring, and alerting, payment factory, and in-house bank. I'll speak to these aspects separately on a different page. And then we already talked about connectivity with the bank. So that's what is highlighted in that yellow box up there. Let's go to the next page. So these are all the different things, or rather all the different capabilities that are necessary to centralize your payments and get complete visibility of all cash flow activity. So again, I'm repeating myself, but this is an important point that just getting the bank statements and telling what balances are is half the story. You need to be able to project what the balance will be once your payment activity has occurred. And to be able to do that in a robust way, you need centralization of payments, you need real-time processing, and I'm just reading these blue boxes here, but these are all the different capabilities that you need to centralize your payments and get proper cash visibility updated every moment of the day. And you can read through some of these, and I'll just catch on a few. So exception management, an important one. You made a payment, it failed. Okay, where is it? Who is doing what? Who is supposed to do what? And if it needs to be returned back to the source to be altered, to be changed, or maybe canceled altogether. Message routing, depending on certain criteria, you might want to route the message to a certain bank. If it's high value transaction, maybe a treasury transaction, you're dealing with one bank. If it's just AP payments with low value, high volume transactions, you might want to use another house bank. So quite a few decisions involved as you're managing payments from different sources from within your company. And there was a question around format handling. What do you do if you have, if you're a bigger corporation, you sometimes deal with multiple formats too. And there's no choice around that. Okay, well, you might need some capability to look at the source format, change it to what the banks are expecting, maybe add a few details on top of what your source format is delivering. So format management is also an important aspect. And then of course, there's reporting and analytics, which is down at the bottom. All these things are necessary as you're thinking about centralizing your payment activity. And SAP has a solution that is known as Advanced Payment Management, which caters to a lot of these needs. And I'll go to the next page, which sort of laid out for you how different solutions within SAP can help you centralize your payment activity, which ultimately will lead you to more cash visibility, more in time, and updated all the time. So the way to read this chart is look at the left. There's no payment centralization. You have multiple pathways as you think about centralizing your payments. Let's take the arrow going up. So the very basic thing you can do is put a cash management solution in place with multi-bank connectivity, something that Kim was already describing. That's the starting point. Now you can see the story emerging here. We talked about how you can address the crisis right now and then take the next steps to move beyond that. So the arrow going top is addressing the crisis now, getting the cash visibility, connecting with the banks, getting the updated cash position and balances in your bank. That's the arrow going through the top box, which says payments through S4 cash management, leading up into multi-bank connectivity and through to your bank. Now, you've taken that first step. What do you do next? Well, you have the option to add advanced payment management on top of your cash management application. So from no centralization to payments to S4 cash management and advanced payment management through multi-bank connectivity. Now you're adding capabilities as I described around some of the boxes on the previous page. So that's the second pathway. Third pathway is even more sophisticated. Now you can start to think about, okay, you have established your payment mechanisms with the banks and you're getting the cash visibility, but you have multiple entities. You want to be able to net the receivables and payables across these entities and perform internal netting so that you don't have to depend on external banking relationships for things that can be dealt with internally. Now you're adding the third pathway there, which is payments on behalf of using in-house cash, along with advanced payment management, along with cash management. And of course, multi-bank connectivity still sits in the middle between you and your bank. That's the most sophisticated option you can use. Now it gives you a very, very powerful solution set that many large corporations crave for. And it's all there. Of course, the last arrow at the bottom is just simple establishing the connectivity with the bank, not dealing with any other situation. Some customers actually are doing that because they want to take at least the very basic step of connecting to the bank. And most of the customers who are using ECC fall in this category. But once they start to think about S4 or Treasury as a workstation sidecar option, they start to think about the arrow going up through S4 cash management and the rest of the applications as I described. Each one of these combination scenarios provides unique sets of benefits. So depending on what your situation is, you can choose which option is your starting point and then just keep building up on that as you navigate through your Treasury journey.
Mm-hmm.
John, back to you.
Thank you, Varesh. Thank you. So, the thing I really like about this, and when I was talking with the both of you about this process, this three-step that we're going through in these webinars, is the clarity and the ability to take an incremental approach or do it all at once. In S4HANA implement, you ought to take a look at this. If you're early in your S4HANA implementation, take a look at Treasury. Really focus in and make sure you're taking advantage of all and the tools that are there. I can talk to you more about that particular process. But for those of you who are looking at incremental opportunities, what Haresh has laid out here and what Kim talks about is excellent. I think about it as the simple solution for myself, and I like simple solutions. Of all the banks that I deal with personally, what we've done is through multi-bank connectivity, imagine that you now have your banks, you get your balances all in one place, and I don't have to log into 5, 6, 10 different banks. I see everything all at once. And while I see the balance, I don't know what comprises that balance. Why is that balance the way it is? And it's that next step that we talked about today. Now you begin to see, oh, here are all the payments that I made that comprise that balance. Here's all of the receivables that come in, and I have a better sense of my real cash position, not only the physical position, but what comprises that position so I can make a better choice. When you move to the next step, when you do these automated payments, the payment on behalf of an advanced payment management, it adds that layer of intelligence to what you're doing. It gives you foresight to be even better able to predict how much cash, where you need that cash, the form of the cash, whether it's in dollars, euros, pounds, whatever it is. A really great overview, Haresh and Kim, for that. We're going to wrap up
John,
because we're running out of time. Yes, Haresh.
One important point I would like to make on that, I should have mentioned that before. If you flip back to the previous page, all of these scenarios that I described there are possible alongside your central finance instance. So in fact, if you're doing central finance, you can actually start to centralize your payments using these capabilities alongside it. They're not mutually exclusive. They actually help each other. So central finance gives you certain capabilities around centralizing your payables and reporting them in a certain way. You add cash management on top, you add advanced payment management on top, you add in-house cash on top. You are actually making your treasury process even more and more solid and robust. So think of it this way: you have central finance. These are the processes that you add on top to make your treasury better.
Yeah, and Haresh, that's a great point. Real quick, just a great point. Now, Kim, the question came up: can I use MBC with other ERPs? Not so much. But if you choose a central finance option, like many doing, now have a multi-platform that feeds in and allows you to do management and take advantage of all these while being have in your existing platform. So, Haresh, you and I have talked about this. I really like it myself. Can you say something?
Yes, I know we're wrapping up. I just want to remind the folks on the phone before we close out is that my next webinar, the next phase 3, is where I'm going to talk about the liquidity forecast. That's where I'm going to talk about bringing in all of your open invoices, payables and receivables, and all treasury activity into your items, so you can see as your cash comes in, you can see what you're expected to happen into, either today or into the future. And as those items actually do process, those items clear out. So or else they stay open if they are partially paid. So it actually gives you the next step of your full visibility of your cash. And we'll talk about that next time. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
And Haresh.
Well, thank you. And Haresh, any wrap up before we proceed?
No, I think this is great. I think, Kim, thank you for insightful presentation here, and
you as well.
Look forward to talking more with you.
Yes,
right.
thank
and
you.
I'm going to thank both Kim and Haresh. You guys are great to work with, and I always learn something. So thank you. We got a lot of questions today. I'm sorry we couldn't address every single one of them, but we will follow up with you. Just a reminder that Bramasol is the leaders in business and finance transformation and compliance, and we can help you with your business and finance transformation projects. Focusing in, we understand order to cash, cash and risk, procure to pay, invoice to cash, and we are certainly experts, SAP S/4HANA. I encourage you to go check out, again, all of the great content that we have available. So thanks for joining. Thank you, Kim and Haresh, and I hope everybody has a great day. And stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you on our next event.
Thank you. Bye.